This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Karina Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different cues.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Karina Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Now joining us is Republican gubernatorial candidate David Jones. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure being here. Absolutely love seeing you guys. It's been quite some time. Close to 8 years, I guess.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah,
it's good to see you.
But glad to see everything's going well.
Thank you for coming up.
I'm up here quite a bit in this area anyway. I used to live here. I don't know if you know.
I didn't know that.
I used to live in Bingham, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was the one that restored Bingham, and I put in the Moose Alley Inn restaurant and pub and put that moose in town there. Yeah. It was kind of fun. The townies used to say, hey, David Jones, the man to save Bingham with a can of paint.
When I spoke with you a few weeks ago and you were in Colorado, I didn't realize you were with Charlie Kirk.
Just get goosebumps. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I'll tell you, I was very fortunate. Charlie came here to Maine, and I had dinner with him down at the Dunegrass Country Club. It was really kind of fun because Charlie and I were sitting like you and I are, David, and just having a conversation, going back and forth, talking about different things. And we were talking about some pretty deep topics. And he said, well, where'd you go to college? I didn't go to college. I said, I went to that Italian university. It's called What's the Matter You? He goes, well, that's good. He says, I didn't go to college either. And then we started talking deeper and deeper. And we had about 20 people at the table, including Charlie and I. And it was just great. Here I'm sitting there thinking, I'm really sitting with greatness. And I've met everybody under the sun, presidents, vice presidents, senators, congressmen, some of them great, some of them not so great. And I just thought, wow, this man's brilliant. He was really brilliant because we were like popping off the stuff, and not too many people can pop off stuff with me. People with minds stimulate and talk out of a conversation. And so we got done. We took some photos and shook hands, and that was pretty much it. Monday morning, I'm at the office with David Boyer, my campaign manager, and the phone rings. And it's them. And they're like, would you like to come to our annual fundraiser event? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, what's it going to cost me? Yeah, right. He goes, no, you're coming as my guest. I go, really? Why me? And he said, we think you're the real deal. And I thought, wow, how do you say no to that? Somebody calls you the real deal. What's that? So, boom. I told David, let's book the flights. Let's get out there. And we went. And we spent 3 days in Aspen at the St. Regis Hotel with Charlie and gang. And I'll tell you what, brilliant people. I got to know a lot of them, had dinner with a lot of them, hung out with some of them. I said to Charlie when I was here in Maine with him, I was like, how do you manage 1,000 people? Because I used to have about 1,100 on my payroll back in the day in the construction business. And it was different because I could hire and fire and be gone and replace them the next day. And Charlie just looked at me. He had this boyish smile and a grin, and he just kind of looked and says, they're just all really great people. I just remember that moment as a moment with him. And when I'm in Colorado, he gives us a head table. And we've got people like Scott Jenkins and John Solomon and Tyler, who's now running the organization. And he would be up on stage and says, my buddy from Maine is here. And he'd be pointing me out in the audience. Wow, that's pretty nice that he would even do it. So he did that a couple of times on a couple of different days. Then next thing I know, I mean, that creature, that thing that shot him, I mean, I don't get busted up too often, but I was pretty busted up. And I was driving up to Farmington to speak to the Republican Party up there. Pulled over for a minute, just, gave myself a few moments. I didn't cry, but I definitely welled up. And I was thinking, it's real, he's dead. You know what I mean? Every day, no matter where I go or what I do, it's still with me because that comment he made to me about being the real deal, I never asked him what he meant by that. And I'm never going to know what that definition of those two words are, But it was godsend. I'm really glad that I had that time with him. It was a very special time for me, and I'll never forget it. And the funny part about it was when we went to this thing down at the Dunegrass, my wife did not want to go, but we convinced her to go. And they had a raffle, and she won the raffle, and the raffle was to hang out with Charlie and get a book signed by Charlie. She wrote him a note, and she won't tell me what the note said because she's still, I didn't take her with me to Colorado. So she's like, you didn't take me to Colorado, I'm never going to tell you what that note said. Well, I'm sure someday she'll tell me. But, it was really odd happenstance that my wife wins the raffle, I go to dinner, and the next thing you know, he's invited me to Colorado. Very short friendship, a lot of good dialogue, and I think we exchanged some great ideas. And now the world has really been denied I told him, I think you're going to be president of the United States one day. And he just kind of gives me, he had a boyish look. He would like smile with his eyes and tilt his head. And you probably see it in the videos when you watch it. But he was the real deal. He would have been president of the United States. He was integral in our politics. He was integral in getting President Trump elected and the selection of vice president and so many other people, Caroline Leavitt. He was a brilliant young man, and his knowledge was so deep on so many topics. That was what I marveled at. How can a 31-year-old man know what he knew? I'm not a chapter and verse guy, but he could talk about it. He can cite not only the verse, but he could also cite the chapter. He was just really smart. So I guess his retention level was like through the roof. Maybe he had a photographic memory. I don't know. I'll never get to ask him. But the world's been denied. And we saw what happened over in the UK and all the vigils that were held. I spoke at the vigil in Portland. I felt weird because Charlie Kirk had just been assassinated, and then here I am standing in the middle of Monument Square, the belly of the beast, we call it, and, surrounded by 300-400 people. We had a lot of police officers, but if somebody, was around, it could happen. So everyone should exercise a lot of caution. There's a lot of people out there that they don't even know why they are upset with what's going on or why they don't like Charlie Kirk or why they don't like President Trump, and they'll do crazy stuff. So we just got to be careful, and it's up to us to carry on that mission. Turning Point, you just think of the name Turning Point, and you think, wow, did he figure this would happen someday? Because this is a turning point for our country. Jesus has been found and become in vogue again. The people are really putting their arms around Jesus and God, the Bible, and the scriptures. You really see it and feel it as you go around. I don't care where it is, even here in Maine. You saw there were 3 or 4 vigils here in Maine already.
At least.
And they were well attended, all of them.
Not only that, but church. They were standing room only across the state.
Yeah, think of that. This young man touched the hearts of hundreds of millions of people. 3 million people walking through the streets of London. In fact, when we were there, that Oxford professor, the conservative one that he had podcasts with, he created a new podcast with him while I was there. I sat there and watched that be filmed. And then he had the assistant, I forget her name, to Bobby Kennedy. So it was a really amazing crowd of people. Great experience. Rest in peace. Anything I do is always going to be with the idea that that young man reached out to me, touched me in a way that I thought was special, and I appreciate what he did. And I think people now, in retrospect, realize how important he was to them.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Republican gubernatorial candidate David Jones. You've served as national delegate at both the 2016 and 2024 Republican National Conventions. What did you take away from those experiences?
There were a lot of people at both of those conventions. And at each of those conventions, I met a lot of really interesting people. Everyone you see on TV, all the politicos, you have conversations with them, you talk to them, you find out who is the ones that shake your hand and look over your shoulder, and then who's the ones that shake your hand, look in your eyes, and really mean what they say. So there's a lot of good takeaways from a lot of different people. I met a lot of them. I sat there the other night. It was a picture of Charlie, President Trump, Eric Trump, and Laura Trump. Guess what? I met them all. We're not best buds, but I had the opportunity to meet them and talk to them, and I found out how real they were. With Trump, the first time I met him was here in Bangor. I was talking to him. It was quick. You don't want to take up a lot of time, right? And so I'm always conscious of that when I talk to somebody. I said, Mr. Trump, he wasn't president at that time. I said, there's other people that talk to you, and we can talk about this maybe some other time. And he grabbed me by my shoulder and pulled me back. He says, no, I want to hear this now. They can wait. He never once looked over my shoulder. He wasn't like there just biding time. And I do know a lot of his background because my cousin Mike worked for him for 27 years. So knowing that time, that moment, that's when I said, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to Make Maine Great Again. And that was the beginning of 6 months of my life donating time and money to making sure he became president of the United States. And we did a great job. We had a lot of fun with that. So being part of the National Republican Committee, and then Trump actually picked me to be on the platform committee. There was only 100 people in the entire United States. So if you're one of 100 out of 350 million, that's pretty good, right? Why me? Why did he pick David Jones? And it was a great experience. When you see the inner goings on of anything like that, the organization that President Trump has put together, just second to none. I think the best thing in the world that ever happened was him losing that second election, because then he had 4 years to plan. So, he had the first 4 years and he saw what he did and he analyzed the things that he didn't do and mistakes he had made. And then he had 4 years to go back and amidst all the tyrannical attempts to undermine his life and destroy him. And he came back, and that day, the inauguration day, we were at Susan Collins' office. We broadcasted. We were supposed to broadcast from the Capitol steps like I did in 16, but it was really cold. We froze to death last time. He says, this is even colder. It was really cold. But, you wear dress shoes and it goes right through. I mean, your toes fall off your feet, right? Then they canceled. I was like, we got Susan Collins offered to let us broadcast live from her space. Steve Abbott put it all together. Steve's a great guy. So we broadcasted live, and it was really weird. Susan has a great office. It's right there on the corner. It's overlooking the Capitol building, and we're standing there looking out the window, and it's a great window. And you can see all the dignitaries arriving and getting out of their limousines and going up, and the security details. It was really kind of cool. And this eagle just started flying around the Capitol building. Steve Abbott was looking at it. He goes, I've never seen an eagle here. He says, and here we are on Inauguration Day. An American eagle is flying over the top, and it kept circling the Capitol building as people were arriving. Maybe it was a sign. Who knows? Being involved in the Republican Party has been really exciting to me. Last year, I got Sean Spicer to come, and he was our guest speaker here in Augusta, and that was fantastic. And he gave a great speech. We had a great time. People coalesced together. I just want people to work together. I travel all over the state talking to people, top to bottom. I was up in the Potato Blossom Festival at Fort Fairfield with Paul LePage and had a great time in talking with him. It was kind of funny. I've known Paul since he ran in 2010. I actually knew him a little bit beforehand when he was at Martin's. Since he became governor, I was there. If he wanted to do a press conference at my place, we've done some of that. Walked in the parade. The reception, overwhelming. And I'm telling everybody, I'm seeing that they want to be united. Just got to get them to leave the egos at the door, because there just seems to be that my idea is better than you. I can do it better than you. We can all do it better if we work together. If we win, then we win. If we lose, well, we all lose. And I tell people, if you agree with me on 7 out of 10 things, you vote for me. If you agree with me on 10 out of 10 things, go see a psychiatrist. It's not going to happen, right? But if we don't win, we can't take care of those 7 out of 10 things. And if we let those wedge issues get in the middle of it, then we know what happens. We self-destruct. Let's focus on the things that are important, and let's be a team. There's no I in team. Leave your ego at the door. Let's do what we can to make Maine great again.
So what actually motivated you to run for governor?
Well, of course, I'm a Trump guy, the only Trump guy that's in the race. Make no mistake about it, because I know anybody else might say they're Trump, but I know who was there when we needed him, and I know who wasn't. And there's nobody that's in the race or thinking about getting in the race that was a Trump guy except for David Jones. So I told Ray, I said, if Trump wins, I'm thinking about running. He goes, yeah, I'm thinking about running too. And I said, well, look, you run and I won't. He goes, no, you run and I won't. Probably a better decision, right? So I went back and forth because I have a pretty good life. Like you, I do what I want and be where I want to be. And I have 6 kids and 8 grandkids, and they're all around me all the time. And I love these guys. I got 2 car seats in my car. Yeah, I had made up my mind 100% that I was not going to run. Done. And so I watched this series called King David. I don't know if you saw it. It's a great series. It's about David and Goliath. And I had Elliot on one knee and I had Mary on the other. Elliot was 5 and Mary's like a month away from being 5 or something. And the scene's there where David's going to fight Goliath. Elliot's looking, he's like, Papa, he's going to kill him. Look how big he is. He's going to squash him. I said, no, he's not. He goes, no, he's going to tear him apart. Look how big he is, Papa. And Elliot's very emphatic. I mean, like this kid, he's a mini me. My daughter-in-law said she never thought she'd give birth to her father-in-law, but she has. This kid, I know what he's going to do before he does it because he is me, only at 5 years old. And I'm like, no, Elliot, he's going to win. He goes, how do you know? He says, look how big he is. I says, look, it's in the Bible. He goes, no, he's going to kill him. He's going to kill him. And so Goliath throws a spear at David and misses, throws another spear and misses. A third one kind of catches him on the side and pins him down. He's like, look, I told you he's going to kill him. Mary's just sitting there and she's awestruck, totally silent, not saying a word. I said, no, he's going to win. And he goes, he only has a rock. And so David gets up, he goes running towards him, swinging the thing, and he throws him at him, gets him, takes him out, and then the giant falls. And Elliot's looking at David, runs up and does the victory dance, and they're both standing there. And Mary's looking at me like with these eyes, and the Grinch Stole Christmas, Cindy Lou Who. Well, that's what Mary looks like, right? And she's looking at me with these giant eyes, and she goes, Papa, why are there bad guys in the world? I love the way kids perceive things. I said, I don't know, honey, there's always been bad guys. There's probably always going to be bad guys. She says, well, why do you want to fight bad guys? In my office, there's a picture of Mel Gibson, Braveheart, in a kilt. And one time I wore a kilt. And so she thinks that's me. She swears that's Papa when she walks in. That's my Papa, you know. And it says, why do you want to fight bad guys? And I threw it back at her. I said, well, why do you think I want to fight bad guys? And she looked at me with these Cindy Lou eyes and just most adoring, sincere love from a child you get. And said, to make it a better place for me and all your other grandchildren. That's a sign. And other little things happened, but that was it. That was that day. And it was that day I was 100% that I was going to run. And I did. I told my wife, I said, I'm going to run for governor. And she's like, you what? I'm going to run for governor. She says, it's not exactly how I planned on spending our golden years, but if you want to do it, go ahead and do it because you're going to do it anyway, whether I tell you can or not. And I said, all right, cool. So I'm running for governor. I'm not running for me because I've done everything in my life that I really thought I could. I've far exceeded any expectations of what I ever thought I could do. I just feel it's time, and this is for them and for all the younger people that are in this state. It's a beautiful state, beautiful people. I think it's important that we all work together and we do everything we can. I think the past 7 years have been actually horrendous. The energy costs through the roof, everything. It's just the whole mindset. There's DEI and CRT and the racism. We were past, I thought, racism. But now it's all been rekindled and they're making kids more aware of all this stuff and they're not getting the education they should be getting. When I went to school, I was the kid that was in trouble all the time. They literally had a chair in the principal's office that had a piece of tape with my name on it because I was there so much. And they thought maybe if they put that there, that would stop me from doing what I did. It was just all malicious stuff. It wasn't gang related. It was just antsy. But I never knew my teachers' politics, ever. They never told me what their political beliefs were. They taught me math and they taught me science. They taught me history. English wasn't my favorite subject. If I had a book report, I would skip school because I didn't want to get in front of the class. I obviously learned. But today, the teachers are politicos. You got that teacher in Guilford going and celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder. We can't have educators in school condoning violence against people they don't agree with. It's up to all of us as people to sort through the madness. I've been touring the county jails and going to Republican parties, going to fairs and talking to different people. I go right to the Democrat booth. First one was in Acton. I thought, I like this. This is good engagement, right? So let's find out. You know, I always say you keep your friends close, your enemies closer. So I went in. They had all these things about the big, beautiful bill. I said, so you guys don't like the big, beautiful bill? Oh, that Trump, you're a Republican. You won't understand. I said, well, educate me. Tell me what you hate. Oh, it's just what he does to the immigrants. I said, what do you mean? Well, he's cutting Medicaid. I said, well, he's cutting Medicaid for people that are not citizens and really shouldn't have it. He's not cutting it for the American citizens that should have it and qualify for it. He's cutting it for people that should not have it so that the ones that should have it. Oh, yeah, but, I said, you don't like no tax on tips. You don't like no tax on overtime. I said, it's retroactive as of January 1st, 2024. So you can realize that now on your tax returns. Yeah, but, it's just not the same. I said, are you all on Social Security? Because it's all, blue hairs, gray hair people like me. You're all on Social Security? Yeah. I says, well, do you like the fact that now you're going to get a $6,000 tax credit to offset your taxes on Social Security, which probably means you're not going to pay any income tax at all on your Social Security? Well, and I'm like, you want to reject that? They just didn't have any answers, obviously, because they've been programmed to hate. They got this hatred in their heart, which is unbelievable. I don't understand how people can hate each other as much as they do. We're all Americans. We all bleed red. We all live within this country. And if you love our republic and that we practice democracy in our republic, then you should be happy that you have a president that doesn't want people murdering and raping and pillaging and stealing left and right. Isn't that what we're supposed to have, is law and order? For me, I just can't even believe we have half of these conversations.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Republican gubernatorial candidate, David Jones. As governor, to be elected statewide, you will need more than the Republican vote. You'll need the independents and probably a few Democrats.
I'm down in York County. I've been doing a radio show with Ray Richardson for a long time. 20 years now. Can't believe it. A lot of people know me. I talk and I engage the other side. I think that if you take the common sense approach and you don't get into he said, she said kind of stuff, I'll tell you a funny story. This is a good one. All right. So I do the show one day, and we were trying to come up with a way that would stop kids from shooting each other in school and having these mass shootings. Because Parkland, my mom used to live right there. Part of where the school was her property. So that kind of touched close to home. When you see these tragedies that are going on, I thought, well, what's the answer? I said, why not bring prayer back to school? The Lord's Prayer. I wasn't talking about specific prayer to Jesus Christ or, to God. It's our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, right? It's a generic prayer. Whoever your God is, if you believe in a God, then the Lord's Prayer would cover it. They would call me Christian evangelist. They were calling me all kinds of nasty names. I don't want to say half the names that they were saying. So I go to the office, and this guy comes to the office. His name was Steve. He was a Jewish guy, and he's from New York, and he's probably in his 60s. And I could hear him, because my office is in the back, but I could hear him talking to Catherine up in the front. And I got a bone to pick with that David Jones, And I get that a lot. She brings him in. I said, so how you doing? He goes, I got a bone to pick with you. I said, well, what's that? He says, well, you were talking about bringing prayer back into school. He says, it's against the Constitution. I said, well, here's the Constitution. Show me. He goes, well, regardless of that, because that's a punchline they use, right? And he goes, you can't do that. You can't have prayer in school. I said, why not? He says, well, I'm Jewish. I said, well, Jewish people pray. I said, do you believe in God? I said, I know you don't believe that Jesus Christ was the Messiah. I get that. And he goes, yeah, I believe in God. I said, and you pray? He goes, yeah. But I'm losing friends. This Trump guy, I'm losing friends and family. I said, well, look, if you're losing friends and family over Trump, you should reevaluate who your friends are. And there's not what you can do about your family. But the idea is, well, I hate the guy. I said, well, why do you hate him? And he goes, well, I just do. He's arrogant. I said, well, maybe a little bit of arrogance wouldn't hurt us sometimes. Stand up for what you believe in and take a position. He's looking at me, scratching his head. I said, what's the matter? He said, well, this isn't turning out the way I wanted it to. I said, why not? He says, well, I like you. Well, I says, I like you too. I says, you're an American? I says, I got a lot of Jewish friends. I said, I lived in Boca Raton, Florida. My God, I was the token goy in the neighborhood. So, yeah, I get it. I says, I have no thing against you. I says, you're American. You bleed red. You get up in the morning, have your coffee just like I do. He's like, I got one thing to ask of you. I said, what's that? He says, can I have a hug? I said, you want a hug? He goes, yeah. I said, sure. I get up and I walked around my desk and I gave him a hug. And he said, thank you. Then he turned around and he walked out like he'd just been spun around like a top. He didn't know what hit him. The moral of that story to me is that if we only take the time to have a conversation, we can win. We can win for everybody, not just the Republicans or the Democrats or the unenrolled or the Green Party. We have to understand we are the United States of America. And the only way we stay united is to have a conversation. And if we refuse to have the conversation, we're in trouble. So I think we're at that point. We're at that breaking point, and Charlie Kirk hit the nail on the head. Let's have this common goal of goodness and kindness, and let's talk about our differences and make a path to reason, and we'll all succeed as a country. It's a 250-year-old experiment. It's a great experiment. Capitalism is the only way to go. The idea of turning into a communist country is bizarre. You look at these guys like Mondami and this guy, the oyster farmer up in Damariscotta. I'm like, are you kidding me? They have the same team, by the way. I don't know if you know that. The idea that we would choose socialism, read the definition of socialism and put it on your Facebook page, everybody, because socialism is the first step to communism. And there's no other way. And communism doesn't work. And the idea that everybody is sharing and competitiveness is in our nature. We're a species of animal, and people forget that we're an animal. We are. We're a smart animal, at the top of the food chain, but sometimes we don't act it. We're tribal, and we have tribal instincts, and I've seen it. I've been all over the world and seen a lot of different things, and I've been in Russia, I've been in China, I've been in communist countries, Czechoslovakia back when it was communist. I was there in 89 for the Velvet Revolution, so I saw that change. I saw it in Slovenia. I saw it in Croatia. It's not good, but to have competitive nature, then I think that's what makes America great. The fact that the harder you work, the more you get, the more you make. Now, you got to realize that money isn't the end all. It's the tool that helps us achieve the goals, and we have to have good goals and use the money in a very good way, not in a bad way. So I think we can do this.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 with Republican gubernatorial candidate David Jones. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for part 2 on Sunday, October 19th at 6:30 a.m. on VOM, The Voice of Maine. You don't want to miss it.
You've been listening to Q Point,
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites guests and candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. The most important voices aren't always the loudest ones. They're the voices of everyday people, raising families, running businesses, serving their towns. That's who we want to hear from. Share your ideas with us online, and let's make sure those voices are never left out. Find us on Facebook or on X or at qpointpodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.